All right, first off, I just want to say I'm not a mechanic. I'm just some guy that just works on his own car. So, starting off here, when the car is on the ground, be sure to break the bolts loose while it's on the ground, because once you get it in the air, you're not going to have the resistance to be able to break those loose. Find the jack-up point on your car. There's usually a rail right underneath the door, or just running along the side of the car. And I don't use proper terms, like I don't really know. But yeah, I jack it up just enough to get it off the ground. Just to get the tire off the ground. Safety first. I use 2 jack stands just to make sure, and I leave the jack on there. Sometimes I'll take the tire off and put the tire underneath also. Remove your lug nuts, and I do it in this star pattern or whatever you want to call it. You go diagonally across. That's how I put them on, so that's just how I was taught, so that's how I take them off. I don't know if you really need to do that. I use my knees to stabilize both sides of the tire to keep it flush, so it doesn't wobble around while I'm taking the lug nuts off. We remove the tire. This is what your brake looks like. That's the 14 millimeter. There's 2, top and bottom. Those are the ones you're gonna break loose. And there's 2 17s, one on top, one on bottom. Could be different for whatever car you're doing, but for the most part, it's just those 4 bolts for most front disc brakes. And so, like I said, I break these 14 millimeter bolts loose first. And if you didn't know, just double up your wrenches. I only have hand tools. Some PB Blaster is good. You can get that at any store. Just shoot it on there if you need to. But if you do a lot of work on your own car, don't over tighten stuff. You want to be able to get stuff off. I know sometimes it seems like you should tighten it like crazy, but it doesn't need to be that tight. Double up your wrenches, break them loose. So, I'll hand loosen it a little bit, but I'm going to leave them on there. Going to take my 17 or whatever millimeter your car uses. These ones are a little bit more of a pain to get to, but I mean, it's still not bad. I found that it was really hard to get a breaker bar in there because those bars are kind of long. So doubling up the wrenches is always good, and you only need a tiny bit of wiggle room to really break a bolt loose, and then you can start, working on it. You can't really see it here. Like, I'm filming this on my own, so forgive me, but if you're having trouble breaking a bolt loose, put your elbow as close to your body as you can and keep your armpit like kind of cinched, I guess. And like, you get a lot more leverage, a lot more torque. It's a lot stronger. Just sort of some body mechanics there. And also, if you put your wrench on there at this angle instead of the angle where it's pointed outward, you get a little bit more torque. And always be sure to not put yourself in a position to when the bolt breaks to smash your hand on the ground or cut your hand on something. I mean, I've done plenty of that, so I'm over it. So I break those bolts loose. Use my hands to loosen the bolts that are keeping the caliper on. A little fast forward action. Put your bolts where you can find them. Should slide right out. Oh, I guess. Well, you don't really need to do this yet. But I took off the 14s. Just 4 bolts. That's pretty crazy. Just 4 bolts holding this thing on. Slide that guy off. And so, you don't really have to remove those second 2 bolts until afterwards, if you broke them loose already, because it just kind of falls apart on you. One tip is if you don't really know exactly how the brake pads go in there, kind of keep everything together with the old parts until you can kind of compare it to the new ones. Find a good place to rest the caliper. There's plenty of spots. These old pads are destroyed. There's these little clips. You can get new hardware. Sometimes the pads come with hardware. I just reused the old ones because I've done these brakes before, so I know that the hardware is decent. They should kind of slide right in there. And like I said, if it's your first time doing it, keep the old ones in there so you can see exactly how the new ones should sit. Line them up nicely. Lots of meat on those pads. I like it. Apply the grease. Just keeps it from squeaking. There's some pads that you can get that have like a rubber outside, but you know, whatever. I don't know if you're supposed to put it on both sides. Like I said, I'm not a mechanic, but I do. I just put it on both sides just because I don't know. I kind of forgot which side it's supposed to go on, so a little grease never hurt. Grab caliper. Gonna need a C-clamp. You can get this. I've had this forever. I don't even, it's cheap. I put it into the middle of the, the piston, I guess. Like I said, I don't know terms, but yeah, flatten it out so it's almost level with the caliper. Kind of show you right here. Lots of room to put those pads back in. Should slide in nicely. Let's kind of line those 14mm bolts back up. Make sure your brake line isn't all twisted up and slap that guy back on there. Get your 17mm bolts or whatever size your mounting bolts are. Hand tighten those, get them in there. So I start by tightening them up with just one wrench. And if you notice, I always I do things where I'll tighten a little bit on one bolt, then I'll do the other, then I'll tighten a little bit more on top, and then the bottom. I don't really know. That's just how I was taught. I think it's something to do with equal tension on both bolts, but I'm not a scientist either. There we go. We just get this nice and tightened up. Once it's tightened with one wrench, I'll double it up. Get a little torque in there. Careful, if you haven't done that before, you might hurt yourself. I've had the wrenches slip off. And then your hand goes into whatever is in the way. Just be aware of your body mechanics. Like I said, equal tension, top and bottom. I don't know if that's a real thing, but it's what I do. Not a mechanic, just a dude. And if you can get these bolts off with hand tools, you should be able to, you don't need to torque them down to the point where, like crazy. If you can get them off with hand tools, you should be able to get them on with hand tools. Tighten up those 14s. I used to over tighten everything and strip everything when I was a kid. I just thought things would need to be on there so tight, and I went through a lot of oil pans and tapping bolts. Just don't over tighten stuff. Don't under tighten stuff either. Should probably get a torque wrench, but I don't know. You figure it out after a while. Just tightening these down. All right, got it back on there, looking nice. Let's grab our tire. Basically just the beginning in reverse. Put it on there. I use my knees to keep it flush, so my other knee is pushing against the other side of the tire. It's not gonna, the lug nuts aren't gonna seat perfectly until you get 1 or 2 in there. But I like to get all of them on first and then start adjusting the tire. Maybe there's too much information. This video is for beginners, but you can't really see. It's only me, so I don't have anybody filming this for me, but I'm torquing them down diagonally. So like I'll do one bolt and then I will torque it down completely, like or across, whatever I'm trying to say. The bolt directly across. Remove your jack stands. You know, get it tight enough. Get the bolts tight enough, but you know the wheel's gonna spin until you get the car back on the ground. So you have that car's weight as resistance when you tighten these down. Get a little breaker bar or a torque wrench or whatever you use. But yeah, you don't have to torque these down like crazy. I don't know. You just have to know your car, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I like to get equal tension on all the bolts. Yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for watching. I'm pretty sure this will work for most cars, so take care.